always something to rip to the bass. Good to be in God's house this afternoon, amen? All right, let's continue to praise God together as we sing. much that your freedom is here. We thank you that your love, your compassion, your tenderness, your kindness, your caring is all here in this place. We thank you, Lord, that we are in your house. We thank you, Father, that we worship a God who invites us to come in to his presence. And we thank you, Lord, that we can approach you, that we can know you. We thank you that you know us and that you want to know us deeper, that you want to connect with us. And Lord, we want to connect with you in this time as we gather for worship. We ask, Lord, that you would speak to each of our hearts today as we are gathered here to praise you, that whether through a lyric to a song or a verse of scripture or a word that Key shares with us today, that you would just enlighten us in some way, that you would renew us afresh, that you would help us to come to know you deeper, understand you in a better way, or to be reminded of a truth that we need to hear again today, Father. We just dedicate this time to you and ask that your Spirit would move in us and among us and be present. And we thank you for all your many blessings, Lord. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. I want to welcome everybody to the 5 o'clock evening service. Let's take a moment and just find somebody and greet them. Maybe find somebody you don't know very well. Introduce yourself. Offer a hug or a handshake. How many of you guys used to come to the gathering back when we did this on Friday nights? Handful of people. All right, this is a song that we're about to sing now that we used to sing at the gathering. And so if you've been to that, maybe you're familiar with it, or maybe you know it from somewhere else. I do think this is the first time that we've done this song here at evening service, actually. So for those of you who are not familiar with it, it's pretty easy to catch on to this one. So we'll sort of, let me just play the verse for you just acoustically real quick so you can kind of get a sense of how it goes. Great is your faithfulness, O God. You wrestle with the sinner's restless heart. You lead us by still waters into mercy, and nothing can keep us apart. So remember your people, remember your children, remember your promise, oh God. Oh, your grace is enough. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough for me. Let's sing that part together. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough for me. Everybody kind of got it? Got a feel for it? All right. Let's stand and sing it together. Great is your faithfulness, O God. You wrestle with the sinner's restless heart. You lead us by still waters into mercy, and nothing can keep us apart. So remember your people, remember your children, this time we're going to ask our ushers to come forward to receive the offering, and as they come forward, I'll ask that you please bow with me in prayer. Lord, again, we thank you just for the opportunity to be here this evening, to be in your house. And Lord, during this time of offering, we recognize that it's one way that we can worship you, to give back a portion of the resources that you have blessed us with. And Lord, whatever we offer to you, whatever we offer to your house, we know, Father, that you can multiply those gifts, that you can use those gifts to further your kingdom, that you can use those things to provide amazing experiences like the day camp that we had this past week, where kids have the opportunity to know you and encounter you, some maybe for the very first time. And so we thank you, Lord, for the way that you use our meager offerings and you multiply them and you use them to further your kingdom. And so we offer whatever we may offer to you in just a spirit of worship and humility, Father. And we pray that you would continue to bless the ministry of this church and continue to use this church to spread your word, to spread your good news, to spread your love throughout this community and our world. And we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
All right. Good evening. Oh, good. Thank you, Ashley. I have a few announcements, but before I do, I just want to say thanks to all of you who really helped out with day camp. It was one of the more memorable ones, not only because our t-shirts were bright green, but shows by the way we volunteer. And if there were any recipients of that love and of that kindness, it was our children, it was our campers. And so we were able to see that this week. So thank you for that. I do have a couple of announcements. Tomorrow night, we do have our caregiver support. So for those of you who if you've never heard of the caregivers, it's a great group. It's a group that if you're right now at a point where you're taking care of your parents, or maybe even grandparents are trying to help out somebody else take care of their parents, this is a group that you come to find out how you do that. What are some of the resources that are out there? And so as you come together, they provide that and they help you and point directions to where you can go about doing that kind of stuff. So it's a very, very cool group. And then also this coming Saturday, we have our UMW Zumba. So if you want to get your groove on in that way, come on out. 1 o'clock, and that'll be this coming Saturday. So after this service, if we can just go ahead and remove all the seats and move them all across to the left, that would be great, and that'll prepare them for that Zumba, and they'll go ahead and do the whole chair thing afterwards. Okay? With that, I'd like to go ahead and say that tonight we're going to have Kids Concept again, and Ms. Pearl is going to go ahead and teach nutrition concept. Cool. So you're going to know what you're putting into your mouth, okay? The food that you're putting, and what good or harm it does to you, and Ms. Pearl will be able to do that, especially with dairy and nuts, okay? So parents, if your kids have dairy or nut allergies, I hope that you're able to write that down in the sign-in sheet so that Ms. Pearl would know not to make sure that stuff is not around your children. But she is going to teach nutrition concept tonight, and then next week, Mr. Stevens is going to go ahead and lead us in teaching the keyboard. So if anyone wants to learn a little bit of keyboard, ask him to come on out, and he's going to go ahead and provide that lesson next week. And he'll probably continue to do that every first Sunday of the month. So I can't wait to hear about that. All right, so as I say, children, can you stand up? And you may be dismissed. Miss Pearl's back there waiting for you guys. Okay? Enjoy. Have a lot of fun. Thank you. And it looks like we do have a little one there too.
So I heard that afterwards tonight we have a whole bunch of leftover tacos. That might clash with the kids' nutrition concept.
There's a whole lot of salad too.
So salad too, that's good. So all those kids are going to be judging us how we eat our tacos. Right? I'm okay with that. I'm good with that. Anything for taco. This song that we're going to sing before we get into our message from Key is a song that we sang last week for the first time, and it's kind of a special tune. One, it was written by Bob Coleman, which is a cool thing, and the song is called "Grow Deeper, Go Farther." And as you know, if you've been around faith very much, the whole mission statement of the church is to grow deeper in Christ and to grow farther for Christ. Go farther for Christ. Got to study up on my mission statement. But that concept of growing deeper in Christ and going farther for Christ sort of makes me think of a tree. You know, if you see a great big tree that has a huge canopy where the branches are spreading out all over the place, you know that that tree has very deep roots or it wouldn't be able to be sustained. And I think that's a great image that God has given us for the more that we dig in, the more that we are connected to God, the deeper that we grow in our faith, in our walk with God, then the stronger we are to branch out and to reach out and have an impact in our world. So that's what this mission statement is about when we talk about growing deeper in Christ in order to go farther for Christ, to make an impact in our world. And so Bob has written this song, which I think is really a prayer that God would fill us to be able to grow deeper in Him, to go farther for Him. We want to grow deeper in You. We want to go farther for You. You are the true vine, and we are Your branches. to grow deeper in you. We want to go farther for you. You are the true vine, and we are your branches. Lead us. Lead us to your living water. Fill us with the Spirit that moves. Let us be your hands and feet, Lord. Let your will be done. Let your will be done. We want to grow deeper in you. We want to go farther for you. You are the true vine, and we are your branches. We want to grow deeper in you. We want to go farther for you. You are the true vine, and we are your branches. Lead us to your living water. Fill us with the Spirit that moves. Let us be your hands and feet, Lord. Let your will be done. Let your will be done. We want to grow deeper in you. We want to go farther for you. You are the true vine, and we are your branches. We want to grow deeper in you. We want to go farther for you. You are the true vine, and we are your branches. Grow deeper, go farther. Grow deeper, go farther. We want to grow deeper, go farther. Help us grow deeper, go farther. We want to grow deeper in you. We want to go farther for you. You are the true vine, and we are your branches. We want to grow deeper in you. We want to go farther for you. You are the true vine, and we are your branches. You are the true vine, and we are your branches.
Let's give Scott and Sandy. It's always fun to praise with them. Before I begin today, though, I do want to just kind of make a quick prayer. If I could lift up a prayer for Sue Bulatow. If you don't know who she is, she's a member of our church. And after today's second service, I was leaving the church, and then I got a call from Sunny saying, Sue Bulatow passed out, and the ambulance are here. And I go, okay, so I came back and I realized that she had passed out. But last I heard that she she actually passed out for a moment. Thank you for help with the paramedics, and thank you for just being able to provide a healthy hand around her, a healing hand around her. And I pray, God, that as she's being checked over today, Lord, that you have the proper people who will care for her the best that they can, so that she'll be able to go home ASAP to her family. Thank you again for this communion. We lift up Sudi. We pray that she'll be well sooner than later. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. All right. We have, as you know, we just got through with our day camp, so in many ways, thank you for being here. I know we could be really tired and go, we could take a weekend off, but we didn't, and so I appreciate all the green shirts and things. But as we talk about also singing the song, growing deeper with Christ and going farther, I do have a picture, so if Glenn can pick up the picture. It is a picture, it is all right. So this is, as we grow deeper here, Reverend Ken and the Clem 2 team are going farther out there in Canada, all the way in Canada. And as you know, they've been doing this for the past 3 years, and they've been building relationships with this community. And Reverend Ken, this was his way of saying, the Clem 2 team says hi. And they're working hard out there, and they'll be back this coming Friday. So let's keep them in our prayers. We're in a sermon series right now, and throughout the whole year, we've been kind of talking about this. What does it mean to have life? And so let's go to the next slide. Okay, life, and L-I-F-E. Every letter of that word has a meaning, and each letter fulfills a quarter within the year. And the Bible verse that we're focusing on comes from John chapter 10, verse 10, and this is what it says. Let's read this together. Ready? I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. And so we all know what that means in some ways. If you don't know, it means God has given us life. And it's not just to have life, but to have it abundantly. We're not here just to survive if possible, but hopefully beyond that to just go and thrive as much as we can with all the resources that God has given us. So we can go to the next slide. So each letter stands for something, and the first quarter of the year we're going through loving relationships, and then the second quarter we're going through, what was it? Invitation, right? Authentic hospitality, and now we're in that quarter in which we're going to talk about further growth. So let's go on to the further growth plan. Next slide. One more slide. All right. So what does it mean to have further growth? What does further growth mean? And that means becoming more like Jesus. Now, as I was saying earlier in the 2 services, this is the only time that we should try to become more like Jesus during this quarter. We should always strive to become more like Jesus. That would be our first and our first calling. But becoming more like Jesus, as I was thinking about this and praying about this, I recognize that there's so many different ways that we can go about becoming more like Jesus. But the one that really sort of hit my heart was in the next slide here. What does it say? This is the Bible verse that we're coming off of, and I'm going to read this and just go ahead and follow along quietly. It says, "You were taught with regard to your former way of life, to put off your old self, to be made new in the attitude of your minds, and to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness." And Reverend Ken talked a little bit about how I was going to come up and share the 2 themes there, to put off your old self and then to put on the new self. And today we're going to talk a little bit about what it means to put off your old self. We're going to talk a little bit about taking off. So that's the topic for today, taking off. And you know, whenever you take off something that you've had for a long time, it's not really easy. You know, one thought I had was a couple of weeks ago when my son Eli went to swimming, and he had on his little swim shirt on. It's kind of tight. And then afterwards, I went to go pick him up, and then he didn't look very happy. So I said, "Well, why aren't you happy? I thought you had fun swimming." And he says, "Well, when I tried to take it off, I couldn't take it off because it was wet and it was tight." And then he says, when someone tried to take it off, it pulled on my ear. And sometimes, when something's been a part of us for such a long time, to try to shed those things is not always easy. And so, as we think about taking off, I want us to think about this one word. What's the next slide? Oh, actually, before that, I had this picture of you because this kind of reminded me of what I want to talk about today. This is our craft team, right? This is our craft team from our day camp this week. And if you look, there's only one gentleman right there. His name is Larry Takumi, if you don't know him. And so he's one of our senior members, and he so much, and he is so great with crafts. Him and his wife Barbara are so wonderful with crafts. And so he had this little African blowhorn that makes a sound. And as you can see, what I wanted to say was, when they sent me this picture, I said, this is perfect. Because when it comes to taking off sometimes, I realize, we spend our whole lives gathering things. We spend our whole lives growing older, right? But I realize here, sometimes it's just important to be able to just take off some of the things that we've taken on. In other words, whatever it takes, whatever it means to be like growing older. Here is Larry, and I don't know exact age, but I know he's over 70. And here he is with a childlike heart blowing that horn, and it's just so funny. And it reminds me of what it means to really start taking off. What does it mean to take off so that we can become more like Jesus? And so when I was watching this picture, it sort of reminded me of that. And as we think about that, the next slide, can everyone say Imago Dei? All right, so that is Greek for the image of God. And when I saw Larry, I was saying, no matter how old we get, it's a reminder of why we were created. We were created, or how we were created. We were created in the image of God. And whenever I hear those words, Imago Dei, just sometimes, whether it's in a sermon or whether it's in a speech, when I go back to my seminary for either a conference, whatever, and the speaker would use the word Imago, they use that word a lot. But every time it's used, it means something. It almost kind of gives me, the goosebumps a little bit, because it's a real deep meaning. And I wrote Genesis chapter 1 because that's where it's written. It says, God says that when we were created in his image. Let us create man and women in our image, God says. And when you think about that, every single one of us, was created in God's image. We all come from God. In other words, we all come from good stock. And that's when I think about that, I go, wow, that's really cool. Can you imagine how many people in this world, how much of a difference it would make if they realized that they all come from a good place, that they were all created by a great God. Can we all say Imago Dei one more time? Imago Dei. And what does that mean? The image of God. We were all created in the image of God. And so we go on to the next slide. And so when I think about the image of God, I realize, in life, some of us have lived for a while, some of us have lived a little less, but no matter what, we've lived long enough to know and to experience that we've kind of, in our lives, taken on layers and layers and layers, whether it's teaching from school or learning from learning bad habits or learning from each other's friends. A lot of us, we all grew up, watching television all over the place, and we're getting all this information, and within all of that, we forget that we were created in the image of God. We just create all these layers, and it's almost like, peeling an onion sometimes, or actually, maybe that's not a good analogy. Maybe it's more like what is the green plant that I'm thinking about that you peel and you get to the artichoke. Thank you. Yes, I hear as you peel the artichoke, the best part is right in the middle. Is that right? But I'm not sure if that's true, because don't you guys eat the leaves? So I'm not even sure if that's a great analogy. But you know what I'm talking about, right? Sometimes we lay on so much that we forget the very innocence in which God had created us. So as I take a look at this day camp picture, this is the image of God. We look at children and we realize, wow, we've been jaded by life. We've been jaded by our experiences. There's so much hardening of hearts. There's so much, anger that we've gone through. There's so much hurt that we've gone through. There's so much pain that we've gone through. And then when we go through all those things, we become very, very, very guarded, and even to the point where we sometimes won't even let God into our hearts. And so when I think about that, I realize, wow, sometimes I forget what it means to be created in the image of God. And so as we move forward, as we think about today's, what does it mean to take off? I think it means, what it means to take off means really just, what does it mean to be created in the image of God? And I think about children, and I think it means that we need to start becoming not like children, but remember the innocence in which God created all of us. Maybe trust in the Lord more, and when we get a chance to enjoy our family, when we get a chance to enjoy our friendships, when we get a chance to enjoy even the very food that we eat sometimes. Sometimes we just don't know how to enjoy things like children. They're so easy to please, and some of us, it depends on what it is. We can be mean, I just came back from, and I know we usually have a little more people, but I know there's a Jets tournament going on this weekend. But thank God that Jets tournament was out in Monterey Park because they had some of the best Chinese food. Right? And I went to probably the yummiest dumpling place I've ever been to. I thought, you guys ever heard of Din Tai, is it Din Tai Fung? You ever heard of that? It's been in like the Food Network channel or whatever. They have the greatest, I mean, yummiest, dumplings. But there's another place. There's another place, and it's called Mama's Lu Dumplings. Oh, it has these dumplings that when you put them in your mouth, it's just juicy. Oh my goodness. And so I realized I got to go back there. I'm so glad that the Jets tournament was in Monterey Park. But it's just that thing. It's just being able to enjoy again the thing that God has given you. And sometimes we forget to enjoy the very things that are right in front of us, like our family members, like the food that we have, or just being able to be thankful. Because in this life, I feel like for those of us who live in LA, we just carry on. We live in this sort of air of as if we don't have enough. You notice that? Whenever we see television or we see other people, we always feel like, I gotta get that, or I need that. But I'm not sure if we really need those things, right? I always feel like if anything, we have too much. I feel like we live in with this attitude of scarcity rather than the attitude of abundance. So what I realize is more and more as we start taking off, I think we can take off a lot of the things that we put on. Whether sometimes it might be a hurtful feeling, it might be something, but sometimes it might just be just shedding some things in our houses, in our homes, whether it's just clothes or things, right? And I realize also that in the next slide, as we think about taking off, I realize, as we start realizing what does it mean to be created in the image of God, I think most of the things that we really need in life, we learn in kindergarten, right? Because when we think about the image of God, I realize the true image of God that we're trying to strive for is Jesus. Jesus is that image of God. We were all created, we forget what that looked like, and that's why God sent Jesus. And with Jesus as our example, we start to see what does that image look like. And at day camp, we realize I'm going to go on to this, but at day camp, we start learning one very thing. What does it mean to be a neighbor? Neighbor is friendly, a neighbor is bold, neighbor is giving, neighbor is forgiving. And sometimes we just need to be reminded by children even what it means to be created in the image of God. And we realize that when it comes to Christianity, it's not just a religion. If anything, it's a relationship. And without relationships, I have to wonder, what is Christianity all about if it isn't about relationships? And so when I realize everything that we need to know about relationships, we've learned in kindergarten. So I looked this up and I realized there's a top 10. So we're going to go ahead and read the top 10 together, okay? And this is what it says. Let's read it together. First one, share everything. We learned this in kindergarten. We can continue to do this today, right? Second one, play fair. We know that, right? Play fair. Next one, don't hit people. Do I need to explain this one? Okay. I mean, this is so important. Don't hit people. In other words, don't hurt people. And this is the very reason why God sent the flood. If you read the whole flood story, God says it's because the violence of men. It's because of the violence of men the flood has come. I mean, that's a big deal. Do not hurt people. Next one. Put things back where you found them. Right? So that's all, like I said earlier, that's for husbands, right? Mostly. All right. The next one. Clean up your own mess. Gosh, how many times, how helpful would that be if we all clean up our own mess? And I don't mean just like physical things like, clothes or toys or books or whatever, but really cleaning up our own mess, maybe even in relationships, maybe even just in our own, mindfulness of things. Clean up your own mess. If you made a mess, clean it up. Go and confront somebody that you've hurt and clean up that mess by letting them know, you know what, I'm sorry. Clean up your own mess. Next one. Don't take things that are not yours. That is straight out of the Ten Commandments. Don't steal. Okay? That's all that means. And then the next one. This is very important. Let's read this together. Say you're sorry when you hurt someone. That is taken so much for granted. As adults, if we were to just say sorry for what we've done, can you imagine where a lot of our relationships would be today? How healthy it would be to just be able to apologize apologize and then to have the power to receive forgiveness because of a genuine apology, say you're sorry when you hurt someone. That can go a long way, right? Next one. Wash your hands before you eat. Very, very important, folks, right? Things that we learned in kindergarten. And of course, this next one. What does it say? Flush. Everyone flush, right? Especially children. I wish they were here. Sometimes I can't stand it when I'm eating, when I finish my meal and I go to the bathroom and I go, oh no, that is not the gift that I want. You know? Eli, Drew, can you please flush? You know? All right. And of course, if I were to add to that, husbands, please, put the seat down. Next one. And the last one. Warm cookies and cold milk are good for you. These are all things that we learned in kindergarten that are good for us. And I tell you, when we start to realize that we've been created in the image of God, we start to realize that we're called to be more like Jesus. And when we're called to be more like Jesus, we think about the things that are important in relationships, the things that are important in what it means to treat one another well. I'm gonna finish with the whole day camp thing of being a neighbor. I had when I moved into the parsonage, and I might have shared this story before, but when I moved into the parsonage, I actually met a great neighbor, but I didn't know it at the time, right? It was our first night at the parsonage, and it was about 9 to 9:30, and there was a knock on the door, and then I said, oh, who could this be? And then we opened the door, and there's this older gentleman, and he says, move your trash tomorrow. And then he walked out, and I went, oh, and he didn't even say hi. I said, okay, see you later, sir. I didn't know who he was. And then I went, I realized there was trash on the side of the house. I took the trash out, and lo and behold, the next day, they're taking out the trash. Oh, wow, that's what he did. Then the next night, that very next night, Tuesday night, knock on the door again, and it's about 9:30, like, I wonder if it's the same guy. And he comes, he goes, tomorrow, move your car. And then he leaves. I go, okay, see you later. And then that's what he does. And then I move the car, and I checked the sign, I went, oh, tomorrow's street cleaning. So I moved the car into the driveway. He just saved me $45. That's a good neighbor. That's a good neighbor. And I realize that when we're created in the image of God, I realize we're created by a great God. And I say this message to the children, and I think it's a message that we can all hear. We're all created to be good. In fact, we're all created to be great. When God says in Genesis, He created all these living things, and after He created them, He said, it is good. And then when He created man and women, He looked at them and He says, wow, this is not just good. He said it was very good. In other words, God doesn't make mistakes. And none of us that He created are mistakes. And every time we say to somebody, you're bad, we're calling God's creation bad. We're calling God's creation not very good. Does that make sense? A great God that created all of us to be great. And I don't think greatness means you're the tallest or the strongest or the fastest or even the smartest. I think greatness means it comes out of that image of God in which we're created and how we live that out as a neighbor. I think that's what determines greatness. If Christ is our example, then sacrifice and others focused, that's where greatness comes from. So I pray that as we move on and realize the things that we need to take off are the very things that may hold us back from realizing that we've all been created in the image of God. I would say, going to the next slide here, we can bring it home, and these are some questions that we can ask ourselves. What in my life do I need to take off to be more Christ-like? Think about that for a moment. And then what things do I need to throw away in my home? And purging is a great way to just take things off and lighten your load. And then the last thing is, what part of my day do I need to give to praying? And I think it's important for us to just spend some time on a daily basis praying. I don't mean like pray for hours, just a minute, just to say hi to God and ask God to be with you as you move into a meeting or as you meet somebody, or just before you start your day. What part of my day do I need to give to praying? And then we can go on to the next slide, because this is a family corner. This is something that you do with your families. Read Ephesians chapter 4, verse 22, and then ask the question to each other, what is one behavior you wish God can help change? Because we can't change each other, but if there's something that we want God to change in us so that we become better neighbors to one another, hopefully that's something that you can discuss with your family and think about that. And then the challenge again is purge 10 items you don't need in your home this week. But I think 10 items are too small. Caroline and I purged 50 items before, and we look back and we're like, wow, nothing has changed. I just think we have way too much stuff. Not only just we, me and Caroline, but I think us in general as a community, we just have a lot of stuff. So I would just say, if you can go into your closet and just purge 20 things, I'd like to see if you feel like you saw a difference or you didn't see a difference. I just think giving away things and giving them to whether it's Goodwill or whatever, it's just a good thing to do, And the more we give in the kingdom of God, I feel like the more we will receive. Amen. Okay. I was gonna show a video of our day camp, but with time, you guys all want to see the video? Okay. All right. Let's show the video. No video? Okay. So, time comes first. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and invite the praise team up. And just as we sing, let's think about and let's be reminded of what it means to be created in God's image. Can we all say Imago Dei? Imago Dei. Let's say it one more time. Imago Dei. You all know Greek now, so think about that. All right.
Let's stand as we sing our final song. And then as always, as I mentioned earlier, there's tacos afoot, so and salad. So please stick around afterwards. We have stuff left from the Taco Man.